With the launching of both Destiny 2's Final Shape, which concludes 10 years of storytelling for Destiny, and The Acolyte, which was the first ever TV show to take place in the only literary High Republic era of Star Wars, I decided to celebrate both by doing absolutely nothing about it, and instead I just wanted to paint up some 3D printed leagues of Votann I found online. Now, the style of my Space Dwarves has always been this astronaut vibe. Lots of blacks and whites with red accent marks, reminiscent of old Apollo-era astronauts or Soviet cosmonauts. Now, these aren't meant to be the typical hernkyn warriors. Instead, these are the hernkyn warriors, with appropriately weird spelling. These are meant to be more vanguard troops, less spacesuits and more trench coats. Honestly, a much more rugged vanguard force for the Space Dwarves as a whole. And a quick disclaimer, I know these hernkyn warrior models look a lot like the hernkyn Jaeger kit that just released for Warhammer 40,000, but these 3D print files were released months ago before the kit was even announced, so this was just someone taking the concept of the bikers and making them troopers. You'll notice they don't even have the same loadout that the Jaegers do, they just have the standard hernkyn warrior loadout because they're just meant to be a proxy for them. I wasn't pirating, these aren't meant to be pirated, I also won't be sharing the STL files because they are no longer available. Anyway, starting with the primer, I gave both of them a good shake. I have a black and a white base coat here. With the black, I do an opposite zenithal underspray, making sure to get the undersides and the deeper recesses of the models themselves. Then, I went with a white zenithal highlight, which was much more aggressive, to keep everything mostly white, but the darker areas that blacker color we sprayed earlier. As you can see, they have a much more white tone that's nice, it's well covered, but it keeps the deeper parts underneath the armor. All that stuff is still a darker, nice, properly shaded color. Now, this scheme is really meant for the heavily armored troops, the full metal plating with the white plastic coating on it. And as you're about to see, these troops don't really have a lot of armor showing. They actually have hoods and trench coats with fur around their collars and visors. But this will still work. I'll just need a little bit of help. So for reference, I use these hernkyn Pioneers. They're meant to be the same sect of fighters, but these ones are on motorcycles. I just made sure to copy what they were doing with the white helmets, black trench coats, and white feet and gloves. To start, I used a gray wash to make sure I recess shaded all of those lovely white armor panels. I did this all over. And I did a quick ashen gray base coat just to get it out of the way. Figured might as well while I'm still here. As you can see, it made it a really nice coat with great recess shading. Then I went with a solid white dry brush to bring out those much more crisper raised edges, making sure they have a little bit of that extra white pop to them. Once that was done, I went with a contrast black paint to get all of the trench coats. Make sure it's a little bit watered down, can't go too heavy, and make sure you get a lot of those darker recessed areas. Then I went with a metallic gunmetal for all the little extra bells and whistles, or in this case, the zippers and runic symbols on all the firearms and weapons. Including, yes, even the animal head on the top of the crest of the leader here. Then I went with a simple Nuln Oil black wash to highlight all the silver elements to get them to shine a little bit more. And I brought back that gray wash too to accent all the little elements of the bases too that I used. Little details left, like I put black on all of the helmets to make sure they look like sun visors. And all the hernkyn here, I made sure that they had their bronze covered heads too. It's what I like to do for this style. I also put the little red accent marks on all the little lights. And all the extra details that were more browns got their colors too. Lastly, a quick energy effect for the main leader here. I did a gradient with a darkened red that I mixed with black paint. Then moving outwards, I then applied the typical crimson paint without the dark mix in. And then I put a pure red highlight on the very edge of the blade. But to make sure it doesn't look like it's soaked with blood, I also, as you see here, went back with a white edge highlight to make sure it had a much more energy crackling effect to it. It's quick and dirty, but it gets the job done. Lastly, a quick dry brush on the bases, just to bring out those extra details. I put a gloss varnish on the helmets to make them look a little shinier and reflective. It's a fun detail I like. And once they're all done, a uniform gray base coating for the base rims themselves to make sure they all look like troopers together. And that's it. I'm pretty proud of how these turned out. This was a pretty simple, quick and easy paint job. It only took about 4 hours of work in total for 10 models. Not super fast, but not that bad in total. Only 1 or 2 painting sessions, and they all look great. I really appreciated the posing of these models. They had so much life and energy to them. You can definitely tell that each one had a little bit of personality. No two models look the same, and there's a bit of extra movement and the cloaks and the momentum of their feet and the poses themselves. They just have a little bit of extra life that I always really appreciate in models like this. Overall, for a quick and easy project, this was a lot of fun. Once next to the brethren on bikes, they looked awesome and they really blended right in the best way possible. Honestly, I'm really happy with how these came out. And as a whole, when you bring in the entire army all together, they really looked like part of a collective, and I honestly might make some more of these guys. They look great. All this goes to show that with a simple color palette and a few simple techniques, you can get professional looking results that add a lot of life and character to your models on the battlefield that honestly doesn't take that much effort as a whole. Alright, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.